Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna briefly summarizing lesson six. Lesson six mentioned suffering in samsara is like surging of ocean waves, and it's impossible to avoid suffering. And there's only so that's the transformation of suffering become very important. And during this transformation, we are able to see ourself, to see its nature very clear, and see how it's rise and goes, um, and able to give rise to the wisdom of the sorry, my handwriting is so bad, the action bliss and emptiness, and that we should able to habituate or cultivate this attitude of no rejection, and able to cultivate this kind of joyfulness when we're like experiencing suffering. And also it talks about we need to drop all of the attitude and not want to suffer, and cultivate the attitude of joyfulness. When suffering or surge, reinforce our practice and make it blossom. And we can start with like smaller sufferings. And every time when we are doing so, we need to pray to our Lama and three jewelry to developing the strength of the practice. And also even like sometime when you're like praying, like bring me more obstacles, even like, oh, if I'm suffer, let me just like take the suffering of all other beings. um, that's the way. Um, oh, this is also my first time like summarizing like text. So let me know if there's anything maybe you want to like add on to, or if anything I did it like pretty bad, please let me know. In lesson seven, always stay confident and cheerful. Um, so the first part is learn and practice the Dharma. All the phenomena arise from causes and condition. So does their successions. So don't take anything for granted that everything is impermanence. And you can take everything as a chance for you to learn the Dharma. Um, for instance, in China, it's like there's like domestic like in Larongar, everybody able to practice, but also like depend on the internet. We're able to have this all of the teaching by the internet. So also we need to get ready for all different kind of unexpected changes, and don't waste any chance to receive like a Dharma teaching by how easy access this teaching it is by the internet. For instance, all of us are just like convening online to do the Zoom classes. Um, and then there's five great treaty. Um, instead of learning. Um, the five great treaty are I don't sorry, it's a little hard for me pronouncing it. It's Abhidhi Dharma Kosha, the Vijnana, the Buddhist logic, and the Madhyamika, and the Praja Paramita. Um, so five great treaties are five, through the learning of our through the learning of five great treaty, many incorrect thoughts that dwell deep in our minds can be dispelled. Um, and for people who are more likely to be younger, it's very good to learn like all of the logic analysis and able to do the right thing at the right time. And for people who are relatively slightly older, it is very it is even though it is very crucial to study Buddhist philosophy intensely while younger, but also for people who are more older, it's much better to have the practice time. Also, when you are young, like It's very important to able to arm ourselves with the able of discriminative wisdom to able to cut through all of our wrong thoughts. First thing first is to able to realizing those wrong thoughts, and as well as apply to everything that we learned from the five great treaty and apply to those thoughts. And also talks about embracing suffering, that we need to establish to having like an open mindset to the eventuality of suffering. And there's a lot of people who are just trying like there's a lot of different ways that you are trying to accept suffering, for instance, like getting tattoo and eating weird food, but that would oh sorry, I think I got mixed up a little bit. The time I made my notes was actually last week. um I think this part, Khenpo Sodargye talks about like a lot of people having different like ways of like making changes, or also like for instance getting a tattoo, and also he talks about himself not able to like accepting like weird food. Um, Shanti. And the last part, always stay confident, cheerful, and happy. He talks about Shantijiva's way of Bodhisattva, the 37 verses, which is, oh yeah, the stinky tofu. Sorry, I think I'm going through that really fast.
That's okay. Follow
Okay,
your
great.
speed, it's fine.
Okay. So yeah, in Shantijiva's way of Bodhisattva, where he says, so somewhat may I will not upset my cheerful happiness of the mind. Dejection never brings me what I want. My virtue will be wrapped and married by it. Um, so like for instance, it's very important to be able to cultivate this attitude of, even though maybe I have money, but I might just like, not be, if I have money I can accumulate merit with it. If I'm out of money, it is also good because I'm worry free and can practice renunciation. So during, no matter the situation is, the mindset, we can be choosing to able to placing ourselves on the happier or on the cheerful side. That even it's also like applied to your health condition, that if I'm healthy I can practice virtue more, but if I'm ill I can practice taking suffering of others upon myself. um, So from this, we can start to like understanding the samsara more. Like for instance, um, during COVID, there's so hard to access for fresh food. But during this situation, it's actually very easy to establish the mindset that no matter if there's good food access to us or not, um, it's okay, it's not a big deal. And also you can just very much using it to develop a very simple food recipe, and through this you can start gaining insights to the material world, to the samsara, that everything it's not reliable and very impermanent. um, and even sometimes when we encounter setbacks in practice, rather than becoming very disappointed in ourselves, you could analyze the situation and always creating room to improve. Um, yeah, so he also mentions that the practices that we all learned in the previous lessons is, don't take it as merely a theory. We should be really applying all of the Dharma to our practice. And the last part, actually the last part was not the last part. There's this part: distance yourself from ordinary social activity. It's very easy to get caught up in everyday preoccupation and busyness, and it's really influenced by all of your misguided friend asking question like, how can you bear to put out with so much suffering, so much humiliation? um, um, so the first thing to do is stay away from hustle and bustle of the city or noisy crowds. So you're able to concentrate on practice and not get distracted. For instance, in Song and Tang Dynasty, there's a lot of monks who are doing group meditation, able to reach enlightenment. Why they're not able to? Oh, and also they were during the group meditation, they will get hit by their supervisor monks with slack. And also even when Khenpo Sodargye talked about when studying five great treaty, even though it's much more listening and reading and probably thinking, but even a short group meditation would be even necessary to do the group meditation. It's also it's also necessary to do the group meditation, even though it's just for a short and during every meeting, just like we did at the beginning of today's lesson. It's easy to be entangled by all of the preoccupation and business, so it's very important to practice dharma instructions with perseverance. And we needed to really be concentrating like athletes. Oh, sorry, I think I jumped over this part. Yeah, it talks about when if we are like developing our meditation habits when we were a kid, it's actually much easier to do. Like even kids, you can have kids to have meditation as a form of punishment. Yeah. And let's jump back to the easy to be entangled by preoccupation and business. In solitary places and practice could remove a lot of distraction, and it's very favorable for those who are diving into the Dharma, and would create very solid foundation for yourself. Actually, after like reading through the tags, I deleted Instagram. Yeah, start your practice in solitude. If we are able to start with practicing solitude, our mind is naturally clear and lucid. A solitude place assists the mind to be tame and pliable. And we needed to practice that step by steps, like five preliminary practice, the shamatha, and able to able to tame our minds, then we could probably receive the Zoren teaching. If it's not done step by step at first, first thoughts is like all of the afflicted. If this like sequence of like the preliminary and then maybe Zoren later, if all of this practice are not done step by step, first if you receive the very like higher dharma, maybe your afflicted minds would cut through at first, but since you're lacking the prerequisite, so in the long term, the student would developing more afflicted minds. So preliminary is the very proper base for all of our practice. And Khenpo Sodargye also talks about even all of the Chod practitioners start in solitude. He says the human being caused suffering is actually bigger than the demon spirit causing suffering, since the Chod Chod practitioner sometimes would start in like a graveyard. Oh yeah, thank you for putting that up. Like for instance, sky burial and charnel ground, and he also mentions the sky burial and charnel ground start becoming more like tourist sites, but not becoming a solemn place for the death. That the death, no matter in what culture, deserves the highest regards. And the sky burial place in the Inglarongar Academy has becoming like tourists take photo and just like clapping and did not realize the corpse that we were looking at were actually our own lively body. So then he gives a summary that for all of the teaching, which is no rejection, no avoiding towards your suffering. And change our mind is the best. Change our mind, change our thinking towards suffering. That the suffering is actually the best opportunity for our practice. And even though undesirable situation occurs, we are stimulated introspective to make full of use of our teaching. Mind is the key, and should I slow down a little bit?
Okay, I'm just not
Yeah, sorry.
like keeping up with you. It's okay.
Sorry.
Just tell me which page are we in right now?
I think
Chalagram
so.
is
It's later. The summary. Yeah, the summary right now.
okay.
Yeah, I'm going through the summary. So he talks about yeah, he talks about we should not reject or like avoid. We need to avoid and abandon the attitude of rejecting inner problems such as illness or outer trouble such as reverie, spirits, or scandalous gossip or undesirable and unpleasant. Second, we need to change our thinking to see them. I'm reading 184. Sorry. Yeah. But yeah,
184 here.
yeah, 84. Yeah, we need to start not rejecting and avoiding for suffering. That second, we need to change our thinking to see them as pleasing and delightful. Yeah, for instance, now it's a perfect chance for my practice. And when the enemy attacks you, think for yourself, I am happy and joyful to have such opportunity for spiritual progresses. Misfortune and suffering are precious opportunity for promoting our spiritual growth. Good practitioner are able to calmly accept these harsh situation, transfer them onto the spiritual path. Yeah, and the second part of this tiny section, which is mind is the key. Tathagata, he I think he talks about the from the perspective. Oh yes, yes, thank you. Is it good if I'm summarizing like next time for me to pull out the note, pull out the PDF and mark it? Actually good.
It will be easier. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. It's a
Yeah,
learning process.
yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Mind in the mind of the key. So when experiencing like a bad time or like more unfortunate time or like a suffering time, superior practitioner would feel excited and want to practice more. And able to viewing suffering as beneficial and regarding bad things or adversity to be good. And also all of the being possess Tathagata. Yes. Um, that that money, I think it's the next page. Yeah, viewing suffering as beneficial. I'm so sorry. I think I did not do a very good job summarizing.
You're doing great.
Sorry. uh, Yeah, the lesson title, always stay confident and cheerful. um and able to view suffering as beneficial, regard bad things, adversity to be good, that you're able to probably start getting disinterested in money, fame, this worldly means, and even sickness, that might be a good thing to practice hard. And I think that's probably in the next page. Oh, thank you. Um, yeah, things themselves have no inherent nature in mind that labels them either good or bad. Since we have accepted the idea that something is pleasant or unpleasant, then it appears so to us. Um, um, I think in the next paragraph that some Dharma practitioner find worldly preoccupations such as prosperity, fame, and wealth meaningless. The more they have, the more they turn away from them. They will be not happy even though they become famous or surrounded by many people praise them or their business makes a lot of money. Um, um, take diseases for, and the second paragraph, take diseases for example. People are vulnerable to and horrified by illness, will be quite worried when they got sick. Why, what shall we do? Will I die this time? um, but for practitioners who have trained themselves in transforming suffering and accepting sickness joyfully, that it's like it's actually a very good situation for them to be able to practice. Let's go to the, yeah. And in, I think this is finally the last part. And Khenpo Sodargye talks about psychology, the difference between psychology and Buddhism or its method. Um, he mentions the Buddhist method in adjusting the mind, a very rarely method mentioned in the research of other field. Um, Psychologists and or psychiatrists that give advice based on their um, based on their like the phenomenon that they observed. And there's, it's divided by three school, which is Carl Jung and Freud and Adler. um, and from Alfred Adler, um, that his schools of individual psychology is comparatively optimistic. That from Adler used his own experience that um, the elements of neurosis is a sense of inferiority. So in Adlerian psychology, the goal for patient is to come to feel a sense of competence in the connection by overcoming their feeling of inferiority. Um, um, but most of it, it's based on his own experience as the third oldest child and the second son in the family of seven children. So it definitely um, he's definitely using himself for a good example of self transformation. Um, but he never received the full regard of his teacher Sigmund Freud. That Sigmund Freud mostly do dream analysis, and he conclude that a lot of our motivation were coming from the libido. Um, I think probably this is going to be the next page where he talks about dreams, the interpretation of dreams. Um, I think it's the Edelic. And Carl Jung, he's able to do psychological analysis, and he talks about the collective unconsciousness of human being. And he actually read the book of Tibetan Book of the Dead. So Carl Jung has the book of the essence of psychological and Tibetan Buddhism, and but still the current psychology where we start establishing particular mental disorder or developing this symptomology that everyone has a symptom is rather a study of the patient or study of the patient which is like I think my notes was pretty simple, just like I square like ignorance next to it, but it doesn't directly look at the nature of the mind. It sees a lot of problem or it analyzed on a lot of problems, or it kind of labels different problems, but it doesn't talk about the nature of the mind. Um, yeah. You should first be clear about the temptation to avoid return to samsara, then you're deluded and do not recognize and fall into the long-term meditated hell. Okay, thank you. I feel like maybe I could share something about myself that like a few years ago I was diagnosed as like a bipolar. I think it was really like based on like the symptom, and you know it's a labeling that kind of make me feel sadder and maybe even have excuses sometimes. So, and I realized a lot of from the Western perspective, the medication they prescribe you, what it does is more to like numb your minds or numb your nerves. So I realized, so I started realizing the system it's not that reliable. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a great summarization. So do you mind me asking a question? This is a little, because you're talking about bipolar, then are you using the Buddhism practice to deal with it? Just drop the medication, or are you still on medication? And
I have not been on medication for a long time.
Great.
But I started like dedicate to Tibetan Buddhism like since the summer. But before that, I used to smoke a lot of weed, you know.
Okay. So
And
that actually helps, right?
so it's very similar to, you know, like the drug they gave you to calm the nerves, you know.
Oh, yes,
So yeah,
opioid.
so once you stop doing that, everything was surging back in a more like tense way. So I realized it's more like a, you know, it's not gonna be the cause of my happiness in long term at all. So
Very
so
good.
I dropped everything
Very
since
good.
the summer. I feel pretty happy about it. Yeah.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you for sharing all that. Thank you for summarizing the text. Very good. I somehow I have two versions. This version of the text I don't have my marks, so I'm not. It's hard for me to track down. It's not your problem. It's rather my problem. So any questions or comments over here? I think we are all familiar with this psychologist, right? It's Freud, Carl Jung, and I don't know about Alfred Adler. So I know these first two, and Carl Jung is very much affected by Tibetan Buddhism, but for Freud, everything is driven by sex, right? So even including all the creativities in the human society. But Carl Jung realized there was deeper cause for that. So let me go back. I don't really think I have much more to add. There was a couple of points when I was thinking. I think we all know about the five great treatises, Abhidhamma Kosha, the Pilaya, okay, Pilaya, either way, because in ancient Sanskrit, B can be pronounced either way, B or B. The Buddhism logic, which is had to the I cannot come up with that word. The Midiyamaka and the Prajnaparamita. So Abhidhamma Kosha is more like a basic vehicle teaching teaching about all the word, everything about the word. So Oliver and I were in the Saturday class, right? So but highway is in Chinese, unfortunately. So everything about the word, how it's classified, how it's named, and if you finish study Abhidhamma Kosha, you will know all the worldly phenomena, the terms of all the worldly phenomena. Why did the Buddha teach that? And it's because if you know all these phenomena, you know how to progress to the next step to arise the emptiness thoughts. You not create additional emptiness. You need to know the object of the emptiness. So the next one is Pilaya. This is about principles to follow and precepts and the Buddhism logic. This is more for the relative truth and just to tell you how to reason, how to see things correctly and not to deceived by some unanalyzed phenomena. Just see things as it is and truthfully. And the Midiyamaka, of course, this is a talk about everything can be analyzed into emptiness. There is no real entity, and so the ultimate truth is emptiness. And then Prajnaparamita is it's also about emptiness, but it's more on the wisdom side. The Midiyamaka is like the way to how do I explain this? Midiyamaka is to tell us we need to take the middle way. The middle way means there's no extremes. So, but if we think of there's no extremes, there's no actually middle. So that is how the logic, and so it takes a lot of it has its own logic system, and then just analyze all the phenomena, and then tell you this cannot be real entity, cannot be truth. So Prajnaparamita is how do I say? Was more from the sutra point of view about the emptiness and the practice of emptiness. Okay, so this is the five great treatises that Khenpo encouraged everybody to learn. And also he always emphasized, not in one occasion, but multiple times. So when people are young, they should do more study, like listening to the teachings, contemplating, and establish a solid foundation for Buddhism, theoretical Buddhism study. And when you get older, you're supposed to be more engaged in practice, because at that time, your theoretical system has already established, so you know what to practice. And in contrast, and some young people, they are so eager to progress, to gain some, experience. And then they start to practice right away without establishing this the foundational views, and then they often fail. So that is the wrong wrong order for practice. So when you're young, you always want to study and learn, and then when you're old, you go for your practice. That's why it later went to solitary for practice. So do the right thing at the right time. That is what it means. Embrace suffering. We know this. If there is something we can do about it, they embrace suffering means whatever situation arise, it can always be a chance for practitioners to grow spiritually. So there's no downtime. So you're in that mindset, you will always be joyful and always there, and you'll be confident too. There's no defeating feelings, right? Even it's something really bad happens and you wouldn't feel defeated because now you feel joyful. Now this is my time to practice. Okay. So I find this is very important. The impact of a misfortune depends on the way you deal with it. So it's only how you perceive it. You don't need to change the situation. All you need to do is change your mindset, right? And then you view it differently, and the results will be different. Distance from social activities. I am doing that. I did quite a bit, progressed a lot on that, but not enough. So, so the importance of stay in a solitary place, peaceful place, because our mind is very easy to be distracted. We need a little bit of protection on that to not get too distracted, so we can cultivate the concentration. And cultivating the concentration is it's super important for practice and for enlightenment. Without concentration, is not possible to really achieve enlightenment or becoming even at like a grow like make advancement on the practice. So tramping right on top of suffering. So this is about child practice. I think everybody knows about trot. This is a very important practice taught in preliminary. So you just kind of offer in the meditation, you offer your body, everything to whatever your elements. So in that way, you cut off self attachment, you make your offering, you actually dispel the adversities in that way. Instead of like in ordinary people, when they face enemies, they want to pick up weapons to fight them, right? And here you just give the complete surrender. I even chop off myself, and here you go. You can cook it, you can eat it, you can just do whatever to it. So so that is one practice created by a female practitioner in Tibet. The first, I think it was the first actual practice admitted by Indian Buddhist that was created in Tibet. Chana Grand, not a tourist place, because people are so curious about the Chana Grand, and especially about the sky barrier. So they go to see the place, but it's not really much to see. Is if you can use that for practice, great. But if not, it's really not for a tourist site. So mind is the key. I always feel like we all should study this sutra called Uttara Tantra Shastra. This is one of the okay. There's another set of 5 treatises by Maitreya. Yeah. So this is one of the Shastra written by Maitreya Bodhisattva. And then in this Shastra, and it discussed the Tathagata Garbha. So Tathagata Garbha sometimes is translated as Buddha nature. So knowing that you are self-sufficient, everyone possesses that Tathagata Garbha, then it's not destructible. It's always there with you, and it can be self-sufficient if we know how. Right now, we are not self-sufficient. We cannot create anything we want or just like be successful on all the aspects because we don't know how to use that. Once you reach that level, you know you can like at the Buddha's level, he is omniscient and he knows how to use that power, and so he can benefit sentient beings without any effort, just naturally. So if we can realize that Gata we can do as the Buddha can do. So we have always that I cannot say it's a thing, it's not really a thing, but it has always been with us, never departed us. So knowing that, so we can, that's the potential that makes every one of us have the potential to become the Buddha, to be enlightened. So knowing this huge advantage, how can one be feeling defeated or feeling down? And when somebody call names on you or somebody speak ill for you on you, so you wouldn't mind at all because you know who you really are, right? So I like this what says, things themselves have no inherent nature, and it is our mind that labels them as either good or bad. And then the tricky thing is, once our mind label them as good or bad, then we get attached to them. If it's something good, we arise greed, and if something bad, we arise anger. So, and so on and so forth. And then once it goes down, we created a lot of negative karma, and then that is what it is in the reality. So if our mind learn how not to label everything, just accept things as they are, it will be much easier. Acknowledge them and knowing the existence and don't label them, then will save a lot of trouble. Psychology we went through. Okay, any more things to say or share? That's all I have to say. You said something here, 5 classic treatises, Master Sanghas, the jewel of realization, the jewel of realization, a commentary on the Prajnaparamita Sutras.
Yeah, I just thought it's a more complete version on both English and Sanskrit names. as well
Oh,
as a very brief summary of what the treatise is about. So I just put it here unless if anyone need it.
okay.
Copy.
Master Chandra Curtis Midiyama Kavatara 就中国专业论释啊。Introduction to Midway 啊，那个住了，right？他们叫 valid perception, wild morality, cool. Abhidhamma Kosa treatise. Okay, let's go to the questions. First one, who volunteers?
Okay. Yeah, this one just got inspired by Khenpo Sodargye's text on page 176. Khenpo says, one who has meditated on the teaching gains a deeper understanding and personal experience of it than one who has never actualized it can ever achieve. As a result, I don't know if you have retrieved it by any chance. No. As a result, when explaining the same teaching to others, the explanation by the one who has meditated on it will be more thought-provoking and inspiring, even if it is something as simple as preliminary teachings of the Dzogchen traditions, such as preciousness of human existence and the impermanence of life. So yeah, it's somewhere in the text, but I just noted the wrong page when I highlighted the text. And when I was reading this, I thought like this is such a great explanation of why some of the teachers speak, and we feel like it just gets into the heart right away. Like the teaching gets very, very. I don't know if you feel like this. Like sometimes you receive a teaching and like, but sometimes you receive a teaching like, wow, and I feel like some teachers they just do this, like whatever they say, that's what they do, because you come to realize by following them and observing and listening to them more often that you know that they perfectly understand what they're talking about because they have experienced it. So that part to me sometimes is so amazing to listen to a teacher who can do this, and then sometimes you don't realize it at first because you don't understand anything of what they're talking about, but eventually you start practicing, you start meditating, you start putting the teachings into action, and then you listen again like, oh my God, this is so amazing to see how true this is. So ultimately, this is I'm actually more answering about the second part of the question, because I guess the first part of the question is more like could be more like a personal answer for everybody, like who have you met and who do you really like, and in the end, in a way, it doesn't really matter. Like what matters is connecting with the teacher, because the teacher makes you connect with truth. So this is what I find so amazing, that eventually you come to slowly realize like, wow, what this person is saying is true. There is no other explanation than this, because you see, oh my God, this is it. So I find that so amazing and inspiring. And obviously there's more than that. There could be some karmic connections, and then like, you just the famous story of Milarepa, just by hearing the name of Marpa, started to cry and became super happy. So it's a different way of explaining, but this didn't happen to me. So I cannot say that just by hearing the name of a teacher I started crying, and wow, this karmic connection was working so well. But through like painstaking practice and study, eventually when I listen to a teaching that I've listened to sometimes many times, I listen again and I'm like, dang, wow, it is really, really, really true. It's so amazing to see this. So to me, I feel so lucky to be surrounded by some teachers when they say these things. It's like, oh my God, this is so amazing, so precious, because it makes sense. It makes complete sense. So it's a little bit like the ordinary counterpoint to this is like I teach in a university, and then I've been teaching for many years, but now there's some things that I finally feel like I'm teaching right, because it somehow feels like now I understand them. So it's a little bit that idea, but now we get to the level of the Buddha Dharma and an explanation that are so deep and profound. But I guess I'm turning in circles a little bit here. But what I mean by that is this idea, like those who have experienced it, they're able to explain it in such a great way. So that's amazing. So I guess I'll stop here, because I feel again I'm repeating myself now. But that's when I read that quote from, I will try to find it in the text. I just somehow wrote, as I said, noted down the wrong page. But when I was reading that explanation by Khenpo, when he says like, someone who has experienced it and understands it basically can teach you simple things, but make them so deep and profound and hit you like they hit you like a hammer, because it's so real and so true the way they were presented. So there's no other explanation that they fully understand what they're talking about, because they have experienced it. So recapping my very, very long explanation.
Well, I think I can speak for all of us. You just had that effect on us as well. So.
Great. I love this sharing thoughts. Literally, I just learned from another class. This is by Ishi Panchuo, Khenpo Rinpoche. He is also from Naronga. I think many of you probably know him. If you don't know him, and Khenpo Sodargye is called the bigger master, and then he was called the master number 2. Yeah, in Naronga. So so he put out he had this literal saying, say there are 2 ways to gain understanding on Dharma. So one way is through learning, hearing, contemplating, and and practicing, and then you learn Dharma this way. He said the second way is actually through praying to the Guru, devotion to Guru. So these are 2 ways to learn Dharma. That's what he said. So I was very impressed by the second approach, because even though I do know Guru Yoga, Guru devotion is crucial, I didn't realize it's that crucial. So so we'll move on to the next one. Any more thoughts? Actually, I like to hear if people have more things to share.
You and me have shared some similar experience, because we're not someone that easily, believe in something. At least I am. So usually you start to pick once you find a master or whatever, a person that you met in life. Once there's something that's like a defect, and then you may start to lose your faith or prove that, okay, this is not my master. I think we spent about 10 years picking on Khenpo Sodargye and trying to find anything that's wrong. We were not able to. So after 10 years, we decided, okay, now he is the one. But if to answer the second part of the question, this could be my experience. Because it did happen. I took refuge in one of the Han Buddhism temple. Maybe here I don't mention the name. I started to listen to some of the classes, and then there's some masters who said something that, okay, maybe it's time to move on. Well, she said something interesting though. Again, I'm not picking, but just my experience. She said, okay, we renunciated as a nun, all we sacrifice the life, sacrifice marriage, happy marriage for you, right? The beings, things like that. I hope that makes sense. I said, there's something, not something that I'm looking for, maybe time to move on. And then of course, after
Not
that, quickly,
appealing.
after a couple of months, we met our Tenzin Jiacuo.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the Tuku Tenzin Jiacuo who just happened to be in Toronto, which I was there too. Anyways, that's how I met our tradition. And since we started the test for Khenpo Sodargye since then. Okay, anyways, one other angle, as perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the second question. Any more?
Yes, maybe. I don't know what you think of this idea of sometimes it's good not to be too close to the master.
Mm.
I don't know how you feel about that.
I think for beginners, it's better not to be too close and like not to live next to him or directly, I don't know, interact with him before your face actually really gets established. Because beginners can view the master, oh, he also eats and go to bathrooms and also sometimes maybe he says something that is you may misinterpret it, or you view this person, maybe he loses his temper and so on and so forth. And I think if people who really have not established their faith, probably, this is my personal opinion, they stay a little bit distance. It's better just by through the learning of the listening or that approach. But once your faith is completely established, I think it will be great.
I agree with you 100%. 12 days that I was in China, we were accompanied by a master or a Shifu from Larangar. And my wife has known him for several years, but we became quite close because we did everything together. We stayed in the same hotels and so on and so forth. And I agree with you because the more you practice, the more you are involved in Buddhism, the more you have a respect for lineage. And the more you realize the status of the master. Without that knowledge, and I can say that I lack that knowledge myself to some degree, you become really close and you forget that he's way up there in status in comparison to you in practice, right? I had to really remind myself of that at times, but in a way it was easy to do because he always established the what do you call it, the position of master, because we had a lesson pretty well every evening for a couple of hours, so I was always reminded of his wisdom, but I understand what you're saying, that familiarity sometimes can be a detriment in your relationship with a master. Definitely.
For me, I every time like I see a master, for instance, I only saw like 2 masters so far, but I follow a lot of like YouTube video of Khenpo Sodargye and Khenpo Lochu. But I only saw like the Dharma center I'm going to is in the South Bay. I'm in the Bay Area, so I saw Jigme Tenpe, and I don't know. First time I saw him, like I kind of don't know how to talk. The second time able to talk. and it seems like every time, I mean, I only have a very few experience encounter like a Shangshi Rinpoche. So, but it seems like at the beginning, I don't know, I just like losing my language or cannot talk straight, or so maybe it's good, just like
Do you think it's because you're too excited or you're too
yeah, I'm
afraid?
too excited and afraid, excited, afraid, and nervous at the same time, and I think at the beginning time, I going to the Dharma Center, going to the Oju Dojo Jin. I don't know how many of you guys live in the Bay Area. It's another like temple or another like practicing thing established by Gachum Rinpoche, and I always have more like a bad thoughts like in my mind, but right now it's more like cleared up. Like it just come up like oh wow, I'm actually thinking so bad. That kind of thing happened. But now it's more gone now. I'm pretty happy. I think I think because Rinpoche told me to chant Guru Rinpoche's mantra. So
Mm,
so I've been chanting that. So I think it's very, very good.
very
Reminds
good.
me of something that I experienced. I found that a
Uh-huh.
master has a way to really feel your heart, and really feel how you are as an individual, right? They can see through you. And that's one thing that I found quite encouraging with my one-on-one experience or conversations that I've had with masters. One in particular, Rigzin Khenpo Rinpoche in Seattle. I had a one-on-one twice with him, and both times he um, he he could feel my genuinity. Otherwise he wouldn't waste his time. And so it's about as pure as an encounter that you can experience with a master. Anyways, thank you. Let's share that.
Yeah, a lot of masters, even though they don't declare, but they can read people's mind.
Yeah. Oh, totally. They have. Yeah, they have that ability through your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe just something as well. I find I've had the opportunity to meet a couple of great teachers before, and then I felt so stupid every time. Like I felt like a child, and then unable to say a thing. I felt like thank you, thank you, thank you. That's all I could say. And then after that, I was like, why am I so stupid? Like you have a chance of being in front of that person. They give you like 20 seconds or a minute of their time. Why don't you ask something intelligent? Something like that. And then I've never been able to, until at some point I started thinking, wait, okay, so there are two possibilities. Either this person is enlightened and is able to read your mind. So why do you feel you need to behave not naturally? Like why don't you behave like yourself? Because they can read your mind. So now you're just being foolish for yourself. They can see who you are anyways. So just be natural. Or another possibility is the person is not enlightened. So if I don't behave naturally, if I don't talk, if I don't speak out normally, they cannot help me because they cannot read my mind. So in either way, I should be myself when I'm in front of a teacher for my own benefit. So after that, I started behaving more naturally when I met some master that I felt important, because we're a little bit sometimes like groupies who just watch their music band, like favorite music band. Sometimes like you meet them like, oh, so amazing. But yeah, the point is like if we're able to be natural, then it can help us so much. Like it make things much easier. So somehow it helped me. But I felt so silly and stupid in the past, like a little child, so many times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Yeah.
remember I probably want to share when I was at Ojin Dojojin. There's Vaja friends, like I mean, of course, much more senior, much more like older than I am. She met His Holiness Jigme Tenpe back in 1993, and she described him like as powerful as a mountain. Like it's very intense encounters. Like, wow, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but
what I
Yeah.
want to share. It's like,
Khenpo Sodargye would said by
uh-huh.
other masters, when he sat somewhere like meditating, usually within like a couple of meters, other people won't stay there.
You
So
mean
there's a
Khenpo
natural
Sodargye?
circle around him. The people,
Uh-huh.
there's a distance. Also, one time in Seattle, when Khenpo Sodargye was there, I was trying to be at others too to raise a question. It actually is about the different steps of realization, like the 5 great treatises on that clear realization. But again, I was so not able to organizing the word, and then it was not even the question. So he didn't. Well, I think he knows. I definitely trust that he knows, but he said no. Like, what's the question? I said, okay, forget it. Maybe I'll ask next time when I'm really ready. Same thing. Yeah, sometimes it's awkward. At one time, I think I've been very fortunate to many occasions very close to Khenpo Sodargye, right? Like translating, driving. And at one time in Hong Kong, I was given the very important job, like being his, what do you call it? Like servant, right? I'll to stay with him all the time, like a bodyguard and all those. I was taking his little purse
And then
with
maybe
all his IDs and passport and those. And then in the meantime, I was also try to be a good volunteer too, doing this, doing that, and then go upstairs, carrying things to upstairs and coming back, and Khenpo asking, "Hey, where's my bag?" I said, "Oh my God, I left it somewhere." So it's just a little bit awkward. But anyways, I think after, maybe even in the meantime, I always, I think very fortunate. I always see it as a kind of blessing, cleansing process. Had some like, different bad thoughts when next master. It was my experience also. At one time, just me and him, my thoughts was almost like a cursing, right? But actually that same night, I had a interesting dream, like vomiting, like blood and all the dirty stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Of course, next day I said, Khenpo, thank you very much for the blessing.
Wow.
He said, what happened? I said, I had a dream.
Wow.
Maybe because of like cursing, right? Anyways, all these are interesting experiences. Okay, thank you.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. I was thinking one biggest great in my life is just I never had a chance to meet Khenpo Jigme Rinpoche.
It's really inspiring. So much. I really enjoy hearing when you're talking about your experience with the Sodargye Rinpoche. And it's very inspiring because I met Sodargye Rinpoche only 2 times, but it's very distant. But from you, I get to know even better. It's really inspiring. Thank you.
But again, yeah, from a view of just an ordinary person, right? An ordinary monk, to you can't deny at all that he's the Buddha. That's my personal feeling. Right? Thank you.
Great, thank you. We got to move to second question.
Yeah, I can answer this question. Why do you need to distance ourselves from ordinary social activities? I think it's in the book, but I will talk my personal experience also. When I just studied the Dharma, and at time study the ways of Bodhisattva is written is that you need to kind of have a solitary place to practice Dharma. And that is what I did. I cut almost all my social activity, almost the people talking to me, almost antisocial. People inviting me, I always say, you know what? No, people's birthday, or no. Because I was very concentrated on ways of Bodhisattva because I was really enjoying the Tibetan Buddhism since my first book is the Larim, and I also listened to Ishi Pengcho Khenpo, and then moved to Sodargye Rinpoche. I know what they taught me. They are gold, and I was so fortunate to meet those teachers. And all the teaching, it makes sense. And it was hard for me to link with anything because I try to link with Christian, but the meaning is not about the Bible, but the meaning they reveal. I wasn't convinced. But Tibetan Buddhism, somehow I just felt so connected. So I was really focused, and I cut everything. And I noticed my mind is really changing. I become more steady. I used to be shake a lot, I'm emotional person, and it's very easily to be, disturbed by something. And I see the benefit of doing that. And you need to create your little environment. Otherwise, you go to ordinary place, we kind of compare. Once you compare, you have a greedy, jealousy, everything comes. We're human, we all have that. So it's important to have that solidarity, the space. That's how I felt. It's my only experience.
What do you feel about the group practice?
The group practice, man, if without the group, I don't think I will continue like that, because my first group actually is not Sodargye Rinpoche's group, it's another group. But at that time, I was very, very superficial. It's just, but I know the Tibetan Buddhism, I know it's gold. So even though nobody continue, we still have 2 people continue, but myself, I see the difference myself and with other person. Even 2 people is better than 1. We all need a group energy. So, and I also heard like some people, even friends around me, and I also listen from YouTube, some people are very hurry to go to the so-called solitary, to go to the cave, to do, so, and they didn't have the right view yet. So in the end, they all quit. So it's important to create a solitary place, but you focus on the teaching, like listening, contemplating, and practicing with a group, have the same goal, same purpose, and we help each other. So it somehow, I found sometimes the group even it's very, very, I cannot say it's more important than teacher, but it's necessary. You cannot, me, myself, I feel it's just I cannot do myself, but I see all my Dharma brothers I'm so grateful for everyone. Sometimes even it's conflicted, but I know that's me. It's nothing to do with anyone else. It's only me. But I'm grateful for each Sangha members. It's really, really, how to say, you have more strength to continue. You need someone along the path. That's how I feel. Yeah. Did I finish my questions?
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I finished all the questions, right?
I think so. I think you did. I love your answers too, and
Yeah.
especially your answer from your own experience. I feel the same way essentially. Just like for me, if I close my door, I'm kind of in solitary place. But that's not it. Because when I start to study Dharma, sometimes I realize like get a little tired, I'll go open some other website and browsing it. And so this is all about how much you can concentrate. Still, even I'm in my room, I can still get distracted. It's still not a, how do I say, a solitary place nowadays. So, yeah.
And I also really enjoy people sharing their experience with the guru. And I felt, oh, I'm not alone feeling awkward when with teachers. I think fundamentally is because I always feel, oh, I'm not intelligent enough. And it's still like it's my ego is working. It's not even though I am a natural person in general. I don't try to fake anything, but sometimes I still like, oh, I don't want the be teacher to be awkward. I want to raise some questions. But I think, yeah, so I felt not alone. You see, that's the beauty of study together. And we all have some similar experience. And I kind of, oh, you don't need to feel bad. It's everyone's the same. So I just feel that way. I just want to express it.
Mm.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Let's move on to the third question.
Can I just say one thing quick about number two?
Sure.
Yeah. I find that everything that is involved in question number two for me is part of my process of renunciation. Right? Distancing myself from ordinary social activities. Your renunciation would be liberating yourself from worldly attachments, right? Forsaking all worldly concerns. I think I've shared before that it's probably been about 2.5 years since I've listened to the news. I don't even know what's going on. And I find it completely useless to me personally. I find it tainted. I find, there's a lot of fake news going on out there. And since I've been doing that, it's made a huge difference to how I feel and to my own personal psyche. And thirdly, the part about studying with others, I think that's just part of the three jewels, right? Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and so we need to observe the three jewels. So to me, it's important, this session that we're involved in here, I'm very grateful for, mainly for that reason, because this is my Sangha, right? And so I think it's extremely important for us as Buddhist practitioners. So anyways, I thought I would share that. Thank you. Why is preliminary practice important? Chapter 3 is teaching. Oh, I think preliminary practice is the basis, basically. Without that, me personally, I'm taking on way too much for me to chew. If I don't learn the preliminaries first. So much, it's the basics of Buddhism, the basis of what I need to learn before I can carry on to anything else. After all, it's practicing isn't practicing Dzogchen the fastest way to reach enlightenment? That's interesting. There are many different practices that you can do to create wisdom, there's things you can do like I'm sorry, my brain is completely fogged up right now with with being sick, but what do they call that again? The Mandela, for instance, is one of the quickest ways, to develop wisdom and there are so many different things that you can do. I think for me, I really need to learn, the preliminary practice first. I know what I need to learn first. Like I mentioned before, the Heart Sutra, for instance, understanding emptiness. All those things is extremely important for me before I can carry on up the ladder in my journey in Buddhism. So I don't know if that answered the question, but
Yeah, very
I
good.
respect. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, preliminaries is the foundation.
Yeah.
Without that, if we go directly to Dzogchen practice, first of all, it's unlikely to attain any experience, right? Second of all, even if we get something, that wouldn't stay, because without this foundation, like the common analogy is like build a high-rise building on top of the sand base, right? So we have to cultivate renunciation, and we have to cultivate the bodhicitta, and then we have to accumulate enough merits and be purified enough, so then we can actually proceed to next step. It's not absolute. For some people, for some unique people, they may be able to directly like go in there, but for most of the people, we have to go step by step.
Yeah, merit was the word that I was trying to remember. I almost said credit. No, it's merit. But what I'm finding is that, like you mentioned, renunciation. Renunciation is so important. What I read recently is that renunciation converts the mundane practice to a supramundane practice, right?
Absolutely.
So there's renunciation, there's also compassion, and there's empathy. To me, those are the three most important attributes that you need to. Otherwise, you can try to accumulate as much merit as you can, but it's mundane as what I read.
Yes.
So yeah, that's extremely important for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, with the renunciation, you are practicing Buddhism. Without that, you are not real Buddhist. That is.
Well, that's the thing. It's easier said than done.
Oh yeah, I know.
Completely,
Renunciation is
but
not that easy.
no, but it is important.
Very important, crucial.
Crucial.
Thank you. Thank you for being here after this long trip. Just get home. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Oh, it was incredible. Really, really incredible. Thank you. And I took the motorcycle ride that you did, by the way.
Oh, we got to get you to share your experience next time.
At night, yeah, we'll get into another time. That was
yeah.
That was quite humorous, actually. Yeah.
Okay, we have to move on.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes, most of us started with like words of my perfect teacher or the Bodhicharvatara, which more probably emphasis on actions, karma, and the result, and especially started with negative karma, cleansing, Vajrasattva, all those kind of practices. In the meantime, of course, if you listen to Dongsa Rinpoche, he would also mention that in some of the classes, it almost gives the Buddhist a feel that you always in a state of blaming yourself, which is not needed. Of course, on the path, it can be some of the intermediate steps, right? Because if you don't regret, you probably don't even practice the cleansing, the purification. So that's important too. But in the meantime, it will. Even in the academy, the monks and nuns claim that too, because they also say when they study the Vinaya, the discipline, they almost feel they are definitely going to the hell realm for the next life, because almost everything you do has some sort of those negative karma that can be made. But in terms of Buddha nature, when you have the idea and then gradually become so sure that everyone is the Buddha, that give you a very, very good foundation of thinking. Not the best word to express the positive thinking, right? And Buddha, anyways. So that's why when you hear harsh words, criticism, negative, you change your other views too, because we've always been, grown up with all those educations or culture, like movies, like, they're bad guys like Hitler, Bin Laden, and all those guys. And probably it's hard for many people to think Bin Laden is Buddha, Hitler is the Buddha also, all those kind of things. Yeah, but so I think with these, you will be much stronger, let's say, to withstand all those criticism and all those bad situations that come. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, very good. So I agree. Think about Hitler, even all these famous bad guys. They also have Buddha nature. We need to move on.
Okay, so
Number 5.
how do you compare Buddhism and psychology? Are they both of equal value in helping one dealing with suffering? it's a good one, I think. To make it, I guess, to make it a short answer, in a way, because it's a tricky question to answer, because we rely a lot on psychology in the West. It's super important. So the point is not to say that psychology is not important. It is important, and it serves a purpose, like psychotherapy and all these things, and research on psychology and all is important. But I thought that this was such an interesting point when you start thinking about how Buddhism and psychology compare. I don't know if you've ever seen the series called In Treatment. It's a short series, maybe about 3 seasons, and it started it's like a British series, and then it got adapted in the US. I didn't watch the British series. I just watched the American one. And then I found that series so captivating. So the whole series it's quite different. So the whole series, it's just the therapist talking with the patients. So first episode, for instance, will be about one session between the patient and the therapist, and then second episode another patient, and then the third and the fourth, and then you get to, like, when you used to have DVDs with the actual DVD. So the first DVD would be like week 1. So you have every day will be a different meeting with a patient. Then DVD 2 is week 2. So the patient comes back, and then the therapist talks with the patient. And then week 3, week 4, Cheros. It's such an amazingly well done series. And then what really fascinated me in that series was the time when the therapist was going to see his own therapist.
Oh,
Because that's what you do. Like when you practice psychology, clinical psychology, when you do physiotherapy, massage therapy, you have your own therapist to help you deal with the trauma that you impose on your own body by helping other people, or the trauma you impose on your own mind by helping other people's mind. And then in a way, this is a very interesting, to me, this is a very interesting distinction between psychology and Buddhism. Because in psychology, people use their ordinary mind to treat other people's ordinary mind. Whereas in Buddhism, if you're lucky enough to have a teacher who is realized, you have a mind that is pure, that has access to the ultimate truth to help you deal with your ordinary mind. So that puts these two things on a different scale, in a way. So once again, I'm not saying that psychology and psychotherapy is not worthwhile, but ultimately, when you push the limit, this is what you realize. And I found that so interesting because I undertook a psychotherapy before I started Buddhism. And then I went through different therapists. And one of them, for instance, was asking me to talk. So I was talking and talking and talking. And then maybe at some point she was realizing that I was talking too much. So now she said, okay, let's focus on your breath a little bit. So she would ask me to do some body scan meditation, like one of the classical techniques that we do in shamatha and things like that. And I remember I hated that so much because I was thinking, why do you stop me talking? I come here because I want to talk, and then you're asking me to breathe. And what's wrong with you? And then I realized afterwards that she never managed to explain me, like to make me understand why we were doing this. She was just do it. Anyway, so I changed therapist, and then that one fitted better, I think. So had sessions, and eventually I encountered Buddhism, and then I encountered Yonggi Mingyur's. I always forget the title. Turning confusion into clarity, something like that. Turning confusion into clarity, which is his Nundro book. I don't know if you've ever read this book. Like Yonggi Mingyur is such a great person and a great writer. So I read I was reading the first chapters I devoured the first chapters of the book, and then I continued to see the therapist, and then I was interacting using what I was learning from Yonggi Mingyur Rinpoche. And then at some point during the different sessions, she said, based on all the answers you're giving me, it feels like you don't need to come here anymore because it seems like you're finding the answers. And then she said, by the way, who is this person and what's the title of the book? So I thought that was quite interesting that she was asking me this, but it really made me realize that these are on different levels in a way. So obviously for so many of us, it's important and we need psychotherapy. But if we devote ourselves to Buddhism and study diligently and open our hearts to it, then eventually we realize how much sense it makes. So that's why I thought that this was such an interesting point that Khenpo Sodargye was addressing psychology in Buddhism. And I was like, wow, indeed, this I wouldn't have said that a couple of years ago, but now that's how I feel about the relationship between the two. I don't know if it makes any sense or if it annoys people if I say this.
Oh, it makes absolute sense, to me at least. Very cool. I had my own psychological therapy experience. It was called marriage counseling when my first marriage was about to fail. It only exacerbated the situation. It never helped. Let me put it that way. So,
for me, I think I had I was on like bipolar medication for a shorter time, but I had been going to therapy for probably like 2 or 3 years. And I feel like going to therapy, it's more like making me feel somewhat secured. Like, you have like a person that can help you to reflect on like your how your mental health is doing. So I think that helps for sure. But after I realized like, oh, I don't need that. So after I came back from China this summer, I went to my last like therapy session. I told him, I was like, oh, I don't need you anymore. I said, I'm great.
Great.
And he sometimes mentioned this word. I pretty don't like it. I think because I think the modern world, it's very developed to making you feel secure. Like we have so many like insurance company, and he always says like you should be aware of like um spiritual bypass. uh,
Mm.
I kind of like did not like the word he used. I'm like, oh, this is probably much more than a spiritual bypass. I'm probably gonna put samsara bypass something, you know. Yeah, that's
See,
my
it's my opinion that all the psychotherapists, they should
Mhm.
learn some Buddhism.
Exactly. Yeah, I told him it was like Buddhism. It's very interesting about because I know he's somewhat like inclined to like Zen Buddhism, not like Zen Buddhism. He's interested in slowing down. That's what he said.
Mm.
But I think, yeah.
Okay,
So,
quickly, not to spend too much more time. In the Western system, all these psychologies like medical are, they're not the pure purpose of like curing, right? Is in the meantime, it can be part politics in part and business for the most part, right? Talking about monks or Buddhism in the psychology, if you're in Thailand, actually in many of the temples, if not all, there is a program called Monk Talk. So people can go to the monk to ask questions and just like the therapist also. So for sure. So if to put it more, maybe a simple answer, Buddhism is the true psychology. Psychology is a kind of little bit of fake topic that people has a purpose for it, right? Try to realize something which has not been realized yet. And Buddhism is more the ultimate answer for that. Okay. Thanks.
It's perfect. I'm gonna look that up, Monk Talk. Maybe it's offered online.
Actually,
Good idea.
I
Go
actually
ahead.
my last week retreat, the Rinpoche told us, actually there are a lot of psychologists. They goes to Dzogchen master
Good.
to learning the methods to help people. I think the psychology and the Buddhism, they more and more, they know the psychology is limited and they start looking for ways. And it's kind of really merging Buddhism and psychology because psychology, I have to face it, is more focused on the phenomena of this time, this life.
Mm.
And Buddhism is 3 lifetimes. And also Buddhism goes to the source, to the nature, to your own Buddha nature. And that's a psychology don't have. So I went to psychologist also. It was not able to help me at all, even though the company provide for free. I just went once, I could not go anymore. And actually, at that time, when I studied Buddhism, there are two of my colleagues. They were conflicted because they not divorced, they broke up, and they all came talk to me. It was like Buddhism really have the method to helping people. That's I feel.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. People always want to seek assurance, right? Security. So think about if we truly know that we have Buddha nature in ourselves. I think that would be the ultimate assurance, ultimate security we can get. Okay, any more sharing? If not, we may end today's discussion. Okay. Thank you all. Let's do our
you.
dedication. Just as all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas dedicate merit, so likewise I also dedicate all merit to the cause of enlightenment of all sentient beings. By this accumulation of merit, may I obtain all sin omniscience, and may all faults be defeated, the whirling turbulent waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death. From this ocean of samsara, may I liberate beings. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience, and the Samantabhadra too, all these merits now are dedicated to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme, so now I dedicate all these roots of virtue for all beings to perfect good actions. Om Ahom Banza Guru Bama Siddhi Hom. Om Ahom Banza Guru Bama Siddhi Hom. Om Ahom Banza Guru Bama Siddhi Hom. Okay, thank you very much.